today. My name is Christine. We are going to record this. My name is Christina Manthe, and I'm the president of the league for anybody that doesn't know me already. And I want to thank you for taking the time to come and learn about the housing concurrence. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jill Armstrong now, who is our committee chair. Jill?
Thank you. Yes, my name's Jill Armstrong, and I co-chair our Jeffco Housing Interest Group. I'm joined by Kathy Smith and Mindy Moore, and they're going to be monitoring the chat for me and also helping me answer any questions you might have. For a little bit of background, the Jeffco League has been interested in housing and the unhoused for quite a few years and has done research and presentations, excuse me. As soon as I started, my throat started tickling. But around 4 years ago, we formed an ongoing housing group. And I might add that last year, the League of Women Voters Colorado also formed a statewide housing task force for any of you that might be interested in housing. We have been focusing more on advocacy in the past couple of years. And to help with that, the LWVJeffco Housing Interest Group is proposing concurrence with the Arapahoe and Douglas position on housing and the unhoused to strengthen its existing Jeffco positions to better meet societal needs. So today, first, we're going to take a look at the state of the unhoused in Jeffco, along with some facts about renting or buying, just a few facts. Then we will go through the current league positions, U.S., state, and Jeffco, and then finally go through the Douglas and Arapahoe positions. You will not be voting on this concurrence today. You can think it over, attend your regular unit meetings next week to discuss this, and a second concurrence question that is being brought to you by the Colorado League of Women Voters. And then after that, you're going to vote online. And I'll give you more information at the end of the presentation about how you're going to vote. You can put your questions in the chat. We'll either answer as we go along, or there will be time for questions at the end. I need to let you know that there are 2 written summaries and the PowerPoint that you'll see today, and they're available at LWVJeffco under concurrence positions on the top blue bar. And so it's accessible, but you do have to log in as a member in order to access those. So any questions about any of that before we begin? Okay. Christina, you started screen sharing? Oh, you're going to show it? So did you all see that? And you're muted, Christina, if you said something.
I did, and I apologize. No, I was going to screen share the league website page, and I didn't. My apologies. And I'm not quite as ready as I thought I was. Just a moment, please. Oh, Christina, what did you do?
If you're looking for the PowerPoint, I'm ready to share it.
Okay, go ahead and share that then, please.
And once I go into slideshow, then I can't see chat or anything else. So that's where Mindy and Kathy will be helping. Okay. I'm assuming everyone can see this, but I'll double check. Good to go? Okay.
Yes.
So this is our background. And this is a quote from actually a panel discussion that we did about 1.5 years ago. And this is from Matt Wallington. Whoops. Help. This is from Matt Wallington, who is the, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, there, I was trying to get the people showing up away from my screen. There is a definite increase in those experiencing homelessness, and it is outpacing any shelter space, affordable housing, or other housing being created. And that's Matt Wallington, who is Lakewood's homeless navigator. And I might add, now that the COVID money has run out, we're also seeing an increase in evictions. So I think it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. It is a problem. It's a problem here in the metro region, in Colorado, and in the US. I thought this was a staggering number. In 2022, there were 582,462 people experiencing homelessness. This does not count people in jails, hospitals, motels, or couch surfing. Each year, usually in January, we do a point in time count in Colorado, actually across the United States, of the number of people that are experiencing homelessness just in that one point in time. That's why it's called a point in time. So in the Metro Denver region last year, 9,065 people were experiencing homelessness. And of those, 2/5 were first-time homeless. The thing that's also frightening about this is, although there were 6,300 sheltered, there were 22,763 people unsheltered. In other words, they were sleeping on the streets or another place not meant for human habitation. And another number to kind of give you an idea of what we're really talking about with homelessness, there's a system that tracks people that are accessing services related to homelessness. And in a one-year period from 2021 to 2022, there were 27,860 unique individuals that related services related to homelessness. And this is in the Metro Denver region. In Jefferson County, we did the same point in time, the same date. At that point, there were 854 people experiencing homelessness. 1 in 2, 1/2 of those were first-time homeless, and only 1/3 were chronically homeless. And again, what I think is a horrifying figure, in that count, 55% were unsheltered, meaning they slept on the streets, in cars, etc. And 70 were youth between the ages of 18 and 24. And to give you another idea of what's been happening between 2022 and 2023, it's up 58%. So we went from a little under 500 to 854. Families are also impacted by this. It's not just individuals. Homeless families across the region between 2022 and 2023 increased by 57%, from basically 1,200 to 2,100. And in Jefferson County alone, there were 223 homeless families with at least one child. And that was a 59% increase over 2022. And I don't know if you can tell from your screens, I thought this was a heart-wrenching picture of a baby being given their bath in a plastic tub out on the street. We also have homeless students. The school system does a count of their homeless students every year. They are more generous in how they identify who's homeless. You can be couch surfing and still be counted as homeless according to the Jeffco school counts, but these are all the people that don't have a stable living environment. And there were 1,637 students in Jeffco schools between, well, the 2021-22 school year, which was the last year that we could find data for. And again, sadly, 56 of those were unsheltered, meaning they weren't anywhere. Here's the other very difficult thing to understand. There is no dedicated low barrier year-round shelter in Jefferson County. As large as our county is, we have no shelter available. What we do have, we have some things. We have a severe weather shelter. Now, this is operated by volunteers between 2 or 3 different churches. One of the issues, it's great that there's shelter, but it opens at 7 p.m. at night and it closes at 7 a.m. in the morning. So at 7 a.m. in the morning, people have to move out onto the streets. You have to pre-apply, and they have a lot of barriers. There's background checks on criminality, no pets, no substance abuse, no children or families. And they're only open for nights that are 52 degrees and below when the weather is wet, or 20 degrees and below when the weather is dry. And again, in Colorado, 7 o'clock in the morning, it can well be below 20 degrees at 7 o'clock in the morning. There are severe weather motel vouchers, but those have an even more limited supply since COVID money has ended. And for any of that space, families get priority. Something new that's happened in the last few years is safe parking. There are currently 4 church sites in Jeffco. And what that does is people are allowed to park in the parking lots and sleep in their cars. But at least they can sleep overnight without fear of the police knocking on the window and asking them to move on, or somebody taking advantage and stealing some of their property. But most of the church sites are around 8 to 10 people or 8 to 10 cars. There might be more people. But as of 2022, there were 2,200 people on the wait list. We also have Mission Arvada, which is across the street from the Arvada Library in downtown Arvada. And it's a day shelter only, but thank goodness we have a day shelter, but it only operates Monday through Friday. The county has been using the White Swan Motel for family sheltering, but it's in the process. The person who bought it with the idea of renovating it. And right now it sounds as though that shelter is going to end probably next spring, 2024. Echo in Evergreen is also a fairly small shelter of 12 beds, but they're overnight from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. and they operate October through April. And it does allow individuals, couples, and families, and pets are allowed. Recovery Works is down kind of close to Colfax and Garrison, and they're currently a respite center. What that means is they're giving the unhoused just released from the hospital a place to continue their recovery. I mean, can you imagine being kicked out of the hospital? Not kicked out of the hospital, that's the wrong word, but being released from the hospital and having nowhere to go, and you're trying to recover. They at this point only have about 10 beds. Good news, we have Recovery Works just received a $9.3 million grant to become a full navigation center in Lakewood. We've heard some different amounts, but they hope to have, it may be more than this, but the last we heard, 50 to 75 beds for shelter, and also provide safe housing to 40 households using new housing vouchers. Unfortunately, it probably won't be ready for use this year. It will be ready next year, but that's some very, very encouraging news. And then there are 2 planned navigation centers in Jeffco still in formation. The Arvada site is on hold. The status, including shelter beds, is very uncertain. And at this point, Lakewood is moving ahead with just the Recovery Works site. Now, a navigation center means that there are other services available, and it's all going to be at one point. So it will include help finding work. It will include food stamps or help with food and other things, trying to pull everything together so that people that are unhoused have a way to apply for as many services as possible, all at one site. So that's what planned options are right now. The other thing that the county does provide are what are called homeless navigators. They have a county staff of a regional homeless coordinator, although last we checked, that position was vacated in late February, and it is still unfilled. So that's a real loss to the county right now. And then they do have 3 family homeless coordinators. And then the cities have navigators. Arvada has, we believe, 2, Golden 1, Lakewood 2, Westminster 2, and then Wheat Ridge and Edgewater share 2. And they're also tasked with trying to help people find shelter, help more with services and so on. But at least there's a conduit and someone who tries to get to know the homeless population in their area and make sure that they don't slip through the cracks. You may know this, but if you don't, the dominant reason for homelessness is the lack of affordable housing. To give you an idea, I don't know if you know anyone who's been looking for a place to rent in Jefferson County. 29% of the people living in Jefferson County are renters, which actually is a pretty low number. And that's from the 2022 quick facts for the census. But the fair market rent in Jeffco right now for a 1-bedroom is $1,538. To afford this, you would need to earn almost $30 an hour or work 87 hours a week at minimum wage. Fair market rent for a 2-bedroom is $1,856. To afford this, you need to earn $35.69 an hour or work 105 hours at minimum wage. And then studies have found that a $100 increase in median rent is associated with a 9 to 15% increase in the estimated homeless rate. And over the last few years, rents have increased dramatically in Jefferson County. So what does this mean for real people? Well, an apprentice electrician could afford $1,128 in rent. A Lakewood police dispatcher with the starting salary, $1,386. An RTD bus driver, about $1,100. Comcast field technician, about $1,200. And a medical assistant, $1,000. And these are people, hardworking people, that with their salaries alone, I mean, let's go back here to what, look at the prices for a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. Look again at the salaries, and you can see that we have a real gap between what people can afford and what is available. I'm going to give you a second just to look at this. What about housing? What about buying a home? This first bullet point, we didn't believe it. Christina pulled out her calculator and ran it. I pulled out my calculator and ran it again. In Denver, home prices rose an average of $94 a day over the last decade. Jefferson County residential values are up 36.5% since 2021. That came from the county assessor. I've seen different numbers for the median home price sold in Jefferson County in 2023, but everywhere you look, it's always over $600,000. And since the start of 2022, the typical mortgage payment, between higher interest rates and higher home values is up 73%. So these are numbers, but behind every number is a child, a family, a veteran, a senior or an essential service worker, and even perhaps someone who used to be your neighbor. So these are some best practices. One of the best things to do to prevent homelessness is to keep people in their homes. And so prevention and diversion is a very, very important part of that. Help them not lose their housing in the first place. There's a new federal strategic plan to prevent and end homelessness called All In. And if you download this PowerPoint slide from the league website, these will be active links so you can actually go to them. Housing First is a plan where you don't worry about people's substance abuse or alcoholism or other issues that they may be having. You get them into stable housing first, and then you start to immediately address the issues that they're having. It's not just giving them housing, it's giving them supportive housing where they learn how to live in housing and they start to address the problems that they have. Rapid rehousing is another program. And then Built for Zero is a movement to end veterans homelessness. It's trying to take a subset of the people that are homeless. And Built for Zero has actually been having some pretty nice successes lately. The causes of homelessness, I think this is very powerful. The Metro Denver Homeless Initiative works with the unhoused all through the metro area, and they release a report every year. state of homelessness. And this came from the 2022-23 report. In a poll conducted by Denver Foundation, housed residents of the region cited unemployment, substance use, and mental health as the most common causes of homelessness. However, systemic causes such as inaccessible housing, economic inequality, and racial inequalities are the root causes of homelessness. Continuing to blame the individual rather than the system will not solve homelessness in its current state, nor prevent it in the future. And here are some things that our group has been thinking about. These are some possible actions using Concurrence for Jeffco League. Right now, Jeffco is putting together and updating the Jefferson County Comprehensive Master Plan, which includes housing preservation and homelessness, with a program called TogetherJeffco.com. And if you're not aware of it, there are actually 4 different areas that they're looking at. So I would recommend that you take some time and go to TogetherJeffco.com and take a look at what the county's trying to do. And I think these are some really good places where some appropriate advocacy from the league could help move the dial. We're talking about maybe moving in the right direction on sheltering, but we still have a lot of gaps. So encouraging Jefferson County and its citizens to create additional year-round 24/7 shelter and transitional housing. And then advocate for extreme 24/7 weather shelter and improved coordination and communication by the county during these emergency periods. We had a real breakdown of the system last December and early January, where I don't know if you remember, but we had extremely cold, wet weather during the holidays and then the end of January. And there was a real breakdown of what shelter was available, how would people get to the shelter, communication between the cities and so on. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And we're starting to advocate for coordinated leadership around that. And then also basically just to hold all local governments accountable. This is something that impacts the cities and it impacts the county. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for the league. So that, I believe, is the end of the background. So I'll pause there before we move into the concurrence. I'll stop my screen sharing and I will ask if there are any comments and questions. No? Okay, I guess I will move on to the concurrence part of our program. Okay, I need to, whoops. Hold on, I did that too early, but before I screen shared. There we go. Okay, hold up. I messed up somehow. I will get there, I promise. Here we go, finally. Okay, so the first thing we thought we needed to do was to take a look at what the current league positions are on housing and homelessness. So the League of Women Voters United States has their own position, and this came out of a Guide to Public Policy Positions 2022-2024. And it relates mainly to housing supply. It states that persons have a right to an income and or services sufficient to meet their basic needs for food, shelter, and access to health care. And then it lists several criteria for evaluating programs and policies to provide a decent home and a suitable living environment for every American family. Homelessness is not addressed. And that's actually what really started us looking at the Douglas Arapahoe position versus our own, because the positions that we have currently on the books do not seem to do an adequate job of addressing the issue of the unhoused. If we move to the Colorado position, basically support policies to provide a decent home and a suitable living environment for every American family. Very broad, and again, really no anything specific to the unhoused. And this is all in writing if you download the documents from the League of our website. So here are our current positions in brief. Support well-planned, diversified types and densities of housing with access to public transportation. Dispersed low-income housing is an integral part of the community. Support manufactured homes, accessory dwelling units. If you hear ADUs talked about, that's accessory dwelling units. Shared housing and accessible homes for families, individuals, seniors, etc. Adequate open space. This one is the one that I think does address the unhoused, but isn't very specific. It supports shelters and traditional housing in Jefferson County as emergency and short-term housing measures with emphasis on assisting people to become self-sufficient. Shelters and transitional housing should address LWVUS criteria. But then Kathy actually brought the Douglas County, Arapahoe County housing position to us. And we would like to present that to you. Before we did that, though, I thought we should explain what concurrence is from the league's idea. And basically it is that members are asked to concur or agree with a statement that may be a position held by another league or a decision statement recommended by a league board or study committee. And this is the important part of it. The statement must be approved as rejected or written. So in other words, as we look at the Douglas Arapahoe, there may be something in there that you say, well, I'd write that a different way, or I'd say that a different way, or whatever. We have to adopt it as written. So I guess what we're asking is, do you agree with the majority of it? Is it better than what we currently have? We're going to add to, not replace what we currently have, but is this going to add to it? So any questions about that before we go on? Nothing? Okay. So the statement of positions, and we have replaced Adams Arapahoe, or excuse me, not Adams, Arapahoe Douglas. We've replaced that with Jefferson County because this is the one thing we are allowed to change. It will be the League of Women Voters of Jefferson County believes that housing is a basic human need and that addressing homelessness is a responsibility of all communities. The goals to be considered should be as follows. Moving those who are experiencing homelessness into a safe housing environment as quickly as possible. Provide housing that is affordable, safe, appropriate, and adequately maintained. Preventing people from falling into homelessness. Respecting the dignity of those who are experiencing homelessness and promoting self-sufficiency. And I'll pause for a minute so you can read those. And then going on, to achieve the above goals, the League of Women Voters of Jefferson County supports the following strategies. Following widely accepted best practices to reduce homelessness, providing an adequate supply of housing, including but not limited to affordable rental housing, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing. Cooperating and coordinating among cities, counties, and nonprofits in the Denver metro region to provide broad-based homelessness service services. And I do have to point out the cooperating and coordinating among cities and counties, providing adequate and sustainable public and private funding for homelessness programs, including funding for personnel, ensuring adequate availability of emergency housing, including but not limited to year-round shelters, paid hotel rooms, and approved outdoor spaces, including parking areas with services such as public toilets and trash receptacles. And I might add that Mindy Moore and Margie Robinson and myself testified in front of the Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners last Tuesday. And I testified as a representative of Jeffco League of Women Voters. And I gave they're looking at some budget additions and leadership additions around extreme weather sheltering. And I used our third position as it stands, but this is a really good example. If this had been the positions that we were using right now, C, D, and E would have been perfect, because we were asking for cooperating and coordination among the cities. We were asking for availability of shelter, and we were asking for funding. And so this would have just been a perfect addition to what we were trying to. Now, I think we moved the dial. I think that they were interested in what I had to say. And I said the League of Women Voters states that. But I just think that this gives us things that are much more specific and powerful than our current position. And then there is one more page. So this is supplying adequate funding and program support for emergency assistance with rent, mortgage, utility, food, and other living costs, as well as assistance in securing housing and avoiding eviction and foreclosure, subsidizing adequate transportation via public transit, ride-sharing services, or other available means, enacting laws that reduce the cost of housing, such as permitting more than 2 unrelated adults to reside together, adopting laws and policies that incentivize private developers and community organizations to build new affordable and low-income housing, or converting existing buildings into affordable housing, low-income housing, and then adopting zoning laws and policies that facilitate development of multifamily residential buildings and preserve existing affordable and low-income housing. So again, any questions about any of this? Clarification, wondering why we think that this is better than what we currently have?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
This is Sandy Bador, and I came in late, so I'm sorry about that. But my question is, and I just saw it pop up on the news the other day, that Jefferson County, now this isn't the county commissioners, but I guess it's the school board, is looking at what they're going to do with all the buildings that they have closed down, and are they going to sell those for assets, or what are they going to do with it? Would that be an example
Yes.
of different types of housing to help address homelessness in Jefferson County?
Exactly. Now, that property is not owned by the county, it's owned by the school district. So it would be a different kind of advocacy, but definitely, yeah, that would be the kind of advocacy that we could do with stronger positions.
Well, and then would that also address what you were talking about earlier, as far as cooperation and collaboration with other entities, including nonprofits? Because isn't the school like a nonprofit? I guess it's not, but it's not a nonprofit, I realize that. But wouldn't that include like the only thing I would suggest is making sure you include people like the schools, the school districts that might not be specifically written in there. So
okay, you probably missed this. I don't know when you came in.
Sorry about that.
We have to adopt this position as written.
Oh, no, I understand that, but is in the writing of this, is it broad enough is my question, to include like the school district or other entities that might not be physically named for cooperating and collaborating with?
I would think because.
Go back one slide.
I'm sorry?
Go back one slide, please.
Oops. Which one? This one or the next one?
I'm looking for it. Let me see, because I think I saw which cooperation according among city, counties, and nonprofits. Well, it doesn't say school board. Certainly, the school board is countywide in Jeffco. So I think we would be able to construe it that way.
Okay,
Well,
In
and I also think to build adopting laws and policies that incentivize private developers and community organizations
there you go. There you
to
go.
build
Okay.
new affordable and low income housing.
And it would also take
And
rezoning.
or convert existing buildings either fully or partially into affordable and low income affordable housing. So to me, that was just almost right on the money.
I agree. Thank you.
And Mindy?
Yeah, if the school district, after getting community input like they're getting from residents who live around these closed schools, if they do decide to work with a developer to create more affordable housing there, it will require cooperation from the city or the county for rezoning, because right now, it's zoned for school, it's not zoned for housing. So that's another case where our position on the need for cooperation and coordination will come in handy, both with the school district and then with the city or the county doing the rezoning.
Well, and then again, J, adopting zoning laws and policies that facilitate development.
Yep.
I just think that this has so much more flesh to it than what we currently have. Obviously, I'm biased. We're the ones who brought this forward, but I'll get out of screen sharing. I have one more slide to share, which is the information on how you're going to go from here. But I do better when I can actually see people. So were there any other questions or comments? Mindy, were you adding something?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? So I guess just as a straw poll, this is not the vote. How is this sounding to people? Is this sounding like a good change, or do you have concerns that we need to address? Okay.
I think it really fleshes it out, as you said, and adds more specificity than what was there before in terms of the zoning. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, and also that it's more, even though it's more specific, it's also more broadly based so that you can include all these other entities that weren't included before.
So let's go back to this last slide about where we go from here. Hang on, I need to screen share again, and I keep forgetting to hit that button. Okay, here we go. All right, can everyone? So what's next? So I don't know how you are, but a lot of times I attend a meeting and I come out thinking everything's great, and I wake up the next night and I go, now, why didn't I ask that? So you've got some time now to think about all of this. And what we're encouraging you to do is you attend your regular unit meeting and have a discussion among yourselves or ask questions. There will be a facilitator from our group at each meeting. And so if questions come up between now and then, hopefully we'll be able to provide you with answers or some additional discussion points. And then after the following week, after our meetings, I think I'm right in saying that. I need to look at a calendar. No.
Jill, it's the same week as your meeting.
The same week as our meetings. Thank you, Christina. We're kind of forced into this by something that the Colorado League is doing. You're going to receive an email from the League of Women Voters Jeffco, so be on the lookout for it. It's going to come on Monday, November 13th after 4 p.m. And it will have a survey for this concurrence. And at the same time, the League of Women Voters Colorado is doing a concurrence on, and I don't think it's news advocacy. Is it news liter? Anyway, they're doing one on news. And we've been asked to return it by 6 p.m. on November 16th, which is actually the last day that our units are meeting. So by 6 p.m. on that day, you're going to need to have made up your mind. And then please return the survey, and the majority of votes returned will determine whether the concurrence is accepted or not. So any questions about that? . I think the most important point in that regard is to be on the lookout for the email. If you get a lot of emails, it's easy for things to get buried. So knowing the timing of it, I think will help. Kathy?
Yeah, for those who might have trouble with whatever the format's going to be, can we provide some other form of communication? Phone number, email, something that if folks have trouble with the form?
If they have, if people have trouble with the forms, the standard procedure should be to call Terry Urbanowski as the webmaster, because that's where the control problem is probably at. The other problem, if they're not getting the email at all, call me, because there's chances that we may have the email address in the system incorrectly, but I know exactly who I'm getting error reports on, so.
Right. Can we include that contact information in what people get so they, if they
We can
run
add it
into
to this,
problems?
we can add it to this slide, I think, or add it to the website. I mean,
I think that would be good just in case there's problems that crop up.
I think what Kathy was actually asking is, could that be maybe in italics on the email that comes out? Of course, I guess it needs to be somewhere else as well, because if the problem is that they're not getting the email, that's not going to address it.
and I do ask how many people are falling in the situation where I am at. The system shows I got it, but it goes to straight to my trash can sometimes, so.
And I guess I will also ask, since this is the first time we've done this presentation, do you have any suggestions for me? Was it adequate? Is there something that I could improve on? Was there some issue with it? In general, it worked.
You did a great job, Jill.
Okay.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree too. Another question then is, what did you find most compelling in the presentation?
Hmm.
So you're saying if someone had doubts before or just didn't know enough, what would they remember? What were they walking away with from the presentation?
Yeah, just coming away with what are you going to tell your friends at coffee? What stayed with you? What was the most surprising? What was the most, what you thought was important?
Tina's got her
Tina?
hand up.
I feel that now we are armed with really good information. I mean, like before, we kind of like went, oh, yeah, I think there's some housing issues and homelessness issues in Jeffco, but we really now, if we do, talk to our friends or our neighbors or whatever, we have really good statistics that we can share that people will be, oh, gosh, okay, maybe they didn't know this. I just feel that this is really good, Jill, and it's going to be a good way to get our point across. And maybe we even write a letter to the editor. And
That would be great.
have some specifics like was in this so that people would become aware. This is what's going on in Jeffco.
I agree. It's really good to have the data now, the data that we have, and it's astounding how much homelessness has increased in the last year.
Yes.
That's
And you all remember how to get to it, so that if you want to download it and share it, do you want to, or here, I can probably do it.
I've got it ready to go, Jill.
Okay.
So
And
this is our homepage. I'm already logged in. And then under concurrence positions, we have the housing proposed position, the background information, and the PowerPoint that Jill just showed, as well as the news access and position and background.
And all that information is in the housing background info as a Word document. I think it's like a 5-page Word document. And there's if either the PowerPoint or the background information has live links in them. And so if there was something that you thought, wait, I want to learn more about that, like the I'm trying to remember what it's called, but some of the things about preventing homelessness. And so this is a great resource for you. I've already shared it with a couple of people, so.
I keep going back to the statistic when you really think about it. Oh, 1538, oh, not a big deal for an apartment. But then when you realize what you have to make an hour to cover that. You go, whoa, or at least I did.
Yeah.
Well, and the sad reality is for some families, they are working 80 hours a week in order to keep their family housed. And to me, that is just untenable to expect. And not just one member of the family. Sometimes it's people that both the husband and wife work 80 hours a week. And where does that leave the kids?
Yeah, one thing that we didn't include that occurred to me that maybe might be useful, be good to have some feedback on this, is the average Social Security benefit and disability benefit. And I don't have the numbers right at my fingertips for 2023, but it's around $1,500 a month, I think, is the average Social Security benefit. And the disability benefit, I think, is around $900 a month. So would that information be helpful to add to some of this?
Yeah.
Kathy, that the slides for tomorrow morning's presentation, there is one that has exactly that on it that Kat Douglas and the county manager put together. So it's all in one slide.
Maybe we already have access for that. So do you want me to try and add that between now and then, or just go with what we have for now?
I think you should add it.
Okay, we will grab it and add it. It's tough out there, guys.
So what's tomorrow? What are you talking about? That's tomorrow, the presentation by Kat Douglas.
You want me to
Bill,
take it? Jefferson? Go ahead, Mindy. You know more than I do.
If I pull up that slide, the slideshow, I could pull it up real quick while you're describing it, Jill. I don't know if I can screen share it, but.
So the Board of County Commissioners do what they call a workshop quarterly around a specific topic. And the topic tomorrow, after the 9 o'clock board meeting, the regular board meeting, they're going to go into a workshop, and it will include a lot of housing and homeless response information. And so housing and homeless services. So Kat Douglas has put together this slide, and this series of slides, and she will be presenting this to the county commissioners.
Can you see the discussion items up there, Jill?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So is this meeting, will this be available on Zoom? So you can.
Yes. Mindy, do you have the link? We could throw it in the chat really fast if anybody wants to attend.
And here's the slide that I was referring to. Someone on supplemental SSI, what they earn. So I guess I don't see Social Security on there. I apologize, but you can see.
I have that number somewhere that I looked up. It's just not at my fingertips. This tomorrow is actually WebEx with the county. So it's a little bit more cumbersome than Zoom. But if you keep following the join as a guest options rather than having to download WebEx, it gets you there eventually after you've put in your name and email and things like that. But just keep choosing the join as a guest option.
So Mindy, could you copy those and put them into the chat so that they could copy them then? Because this won't be anything they can copy.
Yeah, so here's, oops. So here is the link for the meeting. Here's the link to the slide I just pulled up. So I will copy this and hopefully get it into the chat for you. Let's see.
We're really pushing. I think that it's not only the League of Women Voters, it's also some of the people that were part of I'm going to call it a disaster for the extreme weather last year. Some ministers were involved. Linda Berenger, who did safe parking, is involved. Our Jefferson Unitarian Church Community Action Network is involved. So the commissioners are getting a lot of pressure right now because we're really we need leadership. They put together a really nice blueprint around what to do with extreme weather, but at this point, they don't have anyone in the position to actually implement the plans.
Mm.
And so we're trying to put a lot of pressure on them right now. And that's what I testified for the league last Tuesday. And we're going to attend the meeting tomorrow. And then depending on what we learn at the meeting tomorrow, we're going to try and apply some additional pressure. Mindy, did you want to add something or?
No,
Working.
I hope the links in the chat will work if anyone does want to watch that Jeffco meeting tomorrow morning.
I don't
They,
see
they
it there.
didn't make it into the chat yet.
It's not there yet. Did you hit send?
Oh, geez, I'm sorry. That would help. There you go. Can you see it now?
Yeah, they're live links. And you can also let's see, this allow it? Yeah, you can copy the link. So we'll leave that up there long enough for you guys to hit copy and then put it into a Word document or some other page. But I think the more people that they realize are watching, the better.
Hey, I have a question. I'm trying to read through these things. I mean, I looked them a little bit ahead of time, and I get a lot of this is on, we don't have adequate, decent housing or shelters. But I keep going back to what is causes of homelessness, unemployment, substance abuse, mental health, and, inequalities. It just seems like there should be some overall umbrella thing or something that I feel like we're addressing all the symptoms, but not the causes.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say, and in part, we keep blaming the person. That person's a drug addict. That person's wounded from the war. That person. And what we need to eventually do is we need to look at legislation, both at the what's going on at the local level, the state level, and the United States level, and see how we address or how we put together our policies around housing. And it needs to be more systemic change, more overarching rather than just looking. I'm glad that we're saving one person at a time, and we have to have the shelters and we have to do all of that. But ultimately, we also have to think about the systemic causes of homelessness. Does that kind of address your question, or?
Sort of. I mean, I do agree with what you have here, and I think it's a vast improvement. Again, it just seems like there's a lot of underlying causes that aren't getting addressed. Is there what's the vehicle to address those then? Is that a whole separate position?
Elaine, I think part of the concept with the navigation centers, with wraparound services, and with permanent supportive housing is to have trained professionals help people deal with all the other issues you mentioned, mental health issues, substance abuse, how to find employment. So that's why we're really pushing hard for wraparound services and supports, like even the housing first that Jill mentioned. You don't just stick someone in an apartment and expect them to be successful if they have other needs. And so those are additional things that we can advocate for, but it gets pretty broad if you add those to a housing concurrence statement.
Sandy Vandehey?
Yeah, I understand that. Yep.
Sandy Vandehey? You're muted, hon. No, you're still muted.
Won't it be nice if someday we can take that out of our vocabulary?
I think the navigator is really important because that community, I work at the Jeffco, I volunteer at the Jeffco Action Center, and the community that uses those facilities needs help, and having that navigator is there. My question is, does the county have any money for that?
Well, the cities, the navigators that I mentioned, the numbers for each city, that comes out of the city's budget.
That's true. And cities have money.
And then they have 3 family navigators, and they're supposed to fill the regional homeless navigator position. It's not unfilled right now, but it hasn't gone away. And then what we're advocating for and what we were testifying for last Tuesday was actually some additional monies for the human services. What's the exact wording, Mindy or Kathy? It has a specific name.
Well, they're trying to get some more boots on the ground type positions, plus a supervisory position. And that's one of the things that had we had some of this together, the budget is going to be adopted a week from tomorrow for the county for the 2024. And it's just hard to squeak out money for human services and homelessness, but they have $600 and some thousand that they're asking for, mostly for support positions to do some of the boots on the ground work with the unhoused folks. Does that answer the question?
Well, yes, but are there federal funds still from COVID that can be used in that way? I mean,
the county doesn't have any. I mean, they've got, I guess, some unused, or they plan to use, but they underspent ARPA funds. But they're pretty much all accounted for the ARPA money. And yeah, there's this cliff that's happening now because all the support services from COVID are disappearing, and that's going to be a big problem.
I want to come back around and address Elaine's question, because there is something else out there. Elaine, there's a book called Homelessness is a Housing Problem by Greg Colburn and Clayton Page Aldern. And one of the things it talks about in that book is that the high unhoused rate on the coasts, San Francisco, San Diego, places like that, Boston, it's a trickle-down effect there. You have all these people with lots of high-paying jobs who come in and they drive the price of housing up. But then where do nurses and teachers and grocery store workers and people like that live? And it just keeps forcing people down lower and lower till somebody's forced out of the market and is living on the street. And that's one of the things I took away from that is, that's kind of where we're at. We have high income people coming in too, and they're forcing people out of their houses. They can't afford the rents. And, it's just trickling down more and more.
Well, the resorts have had this issue for the past 40 years.
Yes.
And I think that some of the different resort cities, I can think of Summit County, I don't know what county it is, but Steamboat Springs, they've come up with some pretty creative ways of housing, the people that are lower paid, but that they need in order to keep these resorts going. Maids, cooks, that kind of thing. And I'm just I always make the wrong assumption there. I shouldn't be assuming anything, but I always think that, in the past 40 years, we've learned a lot, and we seem to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, including how do you fund this? Because back in my day, I was with Family Tree and I helped start all of the transitional housing programs in the whole country. And, when that money dried up, then there's that big cliff. And so maybe that's part of that underlying piece that someone was talking about earlier is, it's one thing to do all these things and it sounds really great, but how do you sustain it long term?
Yep. Kathy?
Well, the thing that the state's done recently is to pass Proposition 123. Before that, the state put very little money into housing, which has been the problem. And there was a big influx of American Rescue Plan Act money a couple of years ago that they invested a lot in housing. And now we have Proposition 123, which is sustainable. So compared to what the state was doing 5 years ago, we're way ahead of trying to afford these things now. And I think in the next few years, it's still not enough, but it's certainly going to be better than it has been previously.
And underlying all of it is the fact that we've turned housing into a commodity and an investment. And that's going to take a whole mind shift to get away from that. I think ultimately that's the only real answer to all of this is we have to think of housing as necessary, and everyone should have a safe place to live. But I don't know if that's even possible in my lifetime. Well, any other questions or comments? Has everyone gotten enough information? And plus, remember, you can have your discussion in your unit meeting next week. And I hope that I've given you enough information. I really do think that our positions and our ability to advocate for whatever comes along in the future, there might be some transformational idea that comes along in the future. And I think this updated position will give us a much stronger ability to advocate.
I agree.
Pat?
I cannot stop thinking about a lady I met 15 years ago about when my father was in a nursing home for a few months. One of the cleaning ladies was an immigrant from the Philippines. She was working 3 nursing home jobs, all full time. I couldn't figure out how she did it, but somehow whether she was doing it because she was supporting her disabled husband and 2 sons who were in private schools. I couldn't believe how she was sending her kids to private schools, but she was working literally all the time. And I don't know where she lived, but there's a lot of people who are really willing to work, just not to afford a house, I guess.
Thank you, housing group. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to Mindy and Eileen. Why don't all of you that are part of the group, I'm trying to look on the screen really fast. Kathy Smith is part of our group, Mindy Moore, Ellen Steiner, Marianne Bird, although you weren't part of this last go round. Have I missed any? Oh, Betty. Did I get everyone? So we were a powerhouse.
But Jill did most of the work and prepared the beautiful PowerPoint. So kudos to Jill.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your input. I'll be political and hope you vote yay, but think it over.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good one. Thank you. Do I need to stay on, Christina, or can I go ahead and get off?
You can go ahead and get off. I think we're done.
Okay.
Bye.